our moderator, Gregor Zavada, will introduce our panelists for the next session, the future of equity research and corporate access.
Hello, so welcome again. We are here to talk about the future of equity research and corporate access. Those of you that listened to my opening speech this morning know that it's a topic very close to my heart because I was an equity research analyst myself for quite a few years. What we will be discussing today with my distinguished guests are the issues of the changing role of equity research today and also the regulatory impact of the recent regulations both in the UK and in the European Union and how that might impact the communication between corporates and investors and the role of investment banks that stand in the middle of them. My guests today are Mrs. Magdalena Łapsa, fund manager from the largest fund management group in Poland, PZU Asset Management. Mr. Dariusz Grębosz, head of IR for PKN Orlen, one of our blue chip companies, listed on the Warsaw Stock Exchange. And Mr. Rafał Wiatr, head of research for Citi Handlowy, the largest brokerage house operating on the Polish market. I'd like to start with some comments from the recent IR magazine special report that was surveying European investor relations officer regarding their view of equity research and corporate access, how useful that is, and what they think they are gaining from equity research. Now, according to these findings, companies are not always happy with the service they received from brokers regarding coverage and corporate access. However, they still believe that brokers remain vital for their investor outreach. Almost 70% of interviewed corporates strongly agree with the statement that brokers provide a vital role for companies in meeting investors. I will ask Mr. Grębosz and Ms. Łapsa whether that they share that view. Now, more than 3/4 of all investor roadshows are still organized by brokers, although IR teams plan to set their own roadshow targets for the coming years. And, sorry, my notes. And the percentage of companies saying they're satisfied with the quantity of sell-side research is falling, and apparently 58% of corporates in 2004 said that the quantity of sell-side research is satisfactory for them. Also, majority are saying that research is somewhat worsening and is becoming a little bit worse over the past 12 months. And institutional investors tend to be increasingly producing their own research. Now, with these major findings, let me go straight to the questions to my distinguished panelists. Now, the first question would be to Magdalena. What is your view of equity research from the perspective of the largest asset manager in Poland? And what do you find most and least useful when working with equity research?
Działa? For us, sell-side research is very important. Being the biggest Polish asset manager and investing not only in Poland but as well globally, without sell-side research it wouldn't be possible. We do have our internal analysts, but we use sell-side research, first of all, to get the screen of the companies. If you just invest in Poland, you've got like 300 or more companies, so you cannot do it internally all the time to checking these companies. So you look for the screen. If you have, that's the first thing. Then you can go through the different brokers and check what their different views on different companies. So you basically get to know what's the market impression. And once you pick the stocks, you do your own internal research and then valuing the companies, the ideas. The second reason why we are using them is that we do not follow all the companies all the time because it would be impossible. So Like for me, I cover the telco and media sector, so I would follow the market, the country, the company at certain moment, which I think is interesting. But most of the times, the companies tend to have a boring story. So you have a sell-side analyst that look what's going on a constant basis and then tell you, yeah, here is the story that might be developing. So why don't you look at this? So I think this is very helpful for us. The third thing is using a big international brokers. We get to their view on a global, global economy. When in today's world, without top-down approach, I don't think so you can make alpha. So it's very useful to see where we are. That would be, I think.
Thank you very much. So a follow-up question to you. Having said that, what are the key criteria you would use in evaluating a broker?
Like every single, I think, asset management company, we do evaluate the broker in order to split the commission that we are paying from the funds. Still in Poland, we don't have a separation between, unbundling between the research and the trading execution commission. So we do evaluate the broker at least, I think, once half a year. We rank them, and the 6 important things that we are taking into consideration is the professional approach of the broker, the professional approach of the analysts, the professional approach of the back office. Then it would be their share in the IPO and SPO market. Their share in market share, and the last but not the least is the commission, the amount of the commission that they are charging us.
Okay, so it's not all about commissions. It is the quality that matters.
Definitely.
If you could maybe elaborate on this professionalism of research that you evaluate, is there any set of specific criteria, or is it more judgmental? Voting by team members from your team?
It's more voting by the teams, but what we are looking at is if it's the scope of the companies that are being covered. Are they only the big ones that everybody does, or do they have the small and mid caps as well? Definitely would be if they really follow the companies. The thing that we do not like the most is when the company introduces the stock to the market and then they forget about the company. So no follow-up research. So this is very important for us. We've been talking about access to the companies. In today's world, it's very easy to get in touch with the companies. On our side, still, although this is not the part of the commission, but we still appreciate the conferences that are being organized by the brokerage houses. It's maybe because we are a little bit lazy to travel all over, but it's really good if you can do the meetings in 2 days, like seeing 20 companies, everything in one place. And if you are locally based, invest locally, it's much easier for you to go to the company and meet the company. But imagine that you want to see like 20 telco companies from the Europe. Without the conference, it wouldn't be possible.
Thank you very much for this answer. Maybe let's switch sides to the corporate side of things. A couple of questions to Dariusz. Now, you as the investor relations head for one of the major blue chip companies in Poland, are you satisfied with research coverage of your company, or do you see any room for improvement in terms of quality, quantity, any particular features you would be looking at in coverage of PKN?
I think that first of all, Magda and her colleagues should be satisfied, because this is the primary target for for research people, and investors should be happy from the sell side quality. However, the corporate side, the company has also some points to watch in terms of the sell side. In terms of the quantity, we have like 24 analysts currently covering PKN Orlen, which splits equally. 12 are Polish based, Poland based, and 12 are outside of Poland. So in terms of numbers of the analysts covering us, we are fine. Definitely, there is potentially sufficient number of information available on the market. Why I said potential, because I think here is the room where I can see some space for improvement, because within these 24 persons, the frequency of their communication to the market is different, and here I would see some space for improvement, because if there is research on our company which is more than 1 year old, it's not always relevant to the story which we have. We are still talking to the person, so the person is still there. He or she is confirming that he or she is covering PKN Orlen, following us, but the official recommendation, target price, and written opinion available on Bloomberg or wherever, signed by this brand name, is just outdated. So here I would see some improvement in coverage, if there would be some, I don't know the rule, but maybe it should be a more frequently even commitment from analysts that if the house is claiming that is covering a company, it should be somehow obliged to issue the recommendation with a frequent period of time, let's say every half a year or so. And but this relates to my company, which is, as you said, is a blue chip, is a big company, so we have a sufficient number of analysts, if not this, then the other. But overall, generally speaking, I think there is also a big discussion about the quality of the analyst research the sell side is delivering, and here I hear conflicting messages from investors coming, because when I talk to investors, many of them are saying that yes, we subscribe to all these researches, we are buying them, but whether we use them, it's different story. I remember not recently, like a year ago, for a period of, let's say, quarter or 4 months, we had 100% of recommendations sell. All 24 were on sell. And within these 4 months, the price of PKN was going up permanently. So it doesn't seem like the investors were following this recommendation or using them at all. And I was on the roadshow and I was talking to investors and listen, how come that the recommendations are different? And you know, we have such a rule that if the sell side is saying sell, that means that we should buy. So, so that was the answer from the fund manager. How to improve the overall quality of the investors? Because there is always room for improvement. That's my point. And there are a couple of ideas in mind, but maybe I don't want to steal time from
No,
the
that's
others.
okay. Feel free, feel free.
Well, maybe it's a question to Rafa, because it just came to my mind an idea that if we would introduce such a mechanism that if the sell-side analyst would be obliged to invest according to its recommendation, do you think it would improve the quality of research?
Oh, you're asking a person working for probably the most strict bank in terms of compliance you can see on this planet. But Rafael, you want to take this question?
No, I mean, on one hand, it would be sort of putting the money where your mouth is, right? So,
Yeah.
but then I think that will never happen, because it would create a conflict that you first invest and then you write a favorable research. And that's probably, I mean, that it doesn't exist, and it's not going to happen. I have sort of thought, after those few discussions, I have few sort of thoughts from my side, if I can be of any help to you. I assume that since you are here, you're working for the companies that really care about investors' relations. And that's a good thing already. From our side, as research, I would say we are very often disadvantaged to Magda, in a sense that, let's say, if I call her, theoretically it's my brain against her brain, which is not totally true, because it's my brain against her brain and probably 9 other brains of my colleagues. And that's extremely difficult to sort of surprise her unless you are either lucky or extremely sort of smart. The same goes with corporate access. Very often they have much better access to the management than we do, because they are shareholders, and it's highly unlikely the company will say that we're not going to talk to you, and it's very often that the analyst would not have access to the CEO. So these are the sort of challenges, but from my perspective, I would say, if I can be, I would say advise, I would encourage you to be open to research analysts, sometimes to create an atmosphere that he has absolutely any constraints to pick up the phone and call you at any moment. Try to provide as much information as you can and be open about it. The intentions usually are not wrong intentions. This is being done with good intentions. Try to organize some meetings for him if he asks for someone from operational part in the business, because there are a number of companies listed on the Warsaw Stock Exchange, and not only in Poland, that have absolutely no relationship with the market. So anything that you can ask about the company is from the document that is published, and that's it. The other thing that I would say, try to convince the management in the company that you openly state, especially during the quarterlies, the annual reporting, one-offs that are happening in the numbers. So it's really clear for us, it's really clear for Magda. We don't have to guess and call you. We think that we are helpful. We wish to be helpful. But there are challenges that research is facing right now and over the coming years. I mean, the survey was showing that research is sort of declining or being less satisfactory.
Correct.
That is happening, I would say, to some extent. You have a lot of cuts in staff. There is a tendency to produce less research because there is a less compliance officers, less essay that has to read that. And I would have sort of one question to you, maybe somebody knows. Do you know how many, what's the percentage of research that is being opened or read? Anybody has a guess?
I'll say 20.
10%?
It's less than 10, it's about 5. And that's extremely, then, for me and my colleagues, extremely discouraging, because you write something for whom? For yourself? Even this morning, my colleague, we had a sort of discussion, and he said, yeah, the research that you write very often is for you, because there's stuff that you write that then you are being asked for, and you know where it is because you wrote on it. These are the sort of, these are the challenges, but that's the reality. Magda is probably receiving at least 50, if not 100, recommendations a day, and he has, 10, if not 20 analysts that would like to tell her maybe a breaking story and maybe just nothing, right? The challenges that we have is thinking about the buy side when we try to get to them and tell them something, is that the response often that you can get is the tell me something I don't know, or don't read me the newspapers. So these are the challenges that, and we try to get from you something that you haven't told them, so we can surprise them or make some sort of analysis. I would say stop, probably, I talked too much already.
No, that's the reason why we're here, to talk. Rafał, because I saw Magda wanted to jump into your comment, but before I pass the floor over to Magda, I have one question. Can you maybe clarify the audience why what Dariusz just said about all sell recommendation stock going up? Why is that happening, in your view? What happened? Why, based on all sells, the stock went up? Are investors not really following that? You said they're not reading the research, but at least they look at the recommendations, or maybe they don't.
That's definitely, if Darek's saying that, that's probably was sort of true. That was probably a clear contrarian behavior on the part of the buy side, which is not sort of surprising. And I hope I'm not doing that. I hope. But from the history, unfortunately, the research, and that's more or less how it works, is that analysts are not having crystal ball. And sometimes, or often it happens that they will follow the behavior of the stock price. And things unfold later on. And I'm pretty sure that after that, all sell recommendations, you started to have buy recommendations or neutral recommendations on the back of the fact that someone had a downside of 40% and had to do something about it.
Yeah. Now the proportion is different. It's at least 50% is hold. As another 25 buy.
I was hoping for a slightly different answer as well, because in my analyst life, what investors would tell me in most cases is, your recommendation is what matters the least. It's the thought process that's behind it. It's something that's interesting for investors. Is that?
There's one comment, if I can make, to this, and that's going to be a short one. It is a lot of you have, I think, two types of analysts. You have analysts that write a lot and very, very thorough research, but not necessarily they like to talk to the clients. That's the nature. They simply work and do a lot of interesting stuff. Then you have different type of analysts. They are much more of salesmen than a research. I'm not saying that the research is wrong, but the role of the analyst today is much more to be research salesperson rather than just being research. You have to talk to the client. You have to be in front of the client. So you can say, yeah, this guy is calling me. I know who this guy is. And it's hard to say which one is better. Because I've met people that are maybe great salesmen. Would I buy on the back of their advice? Maybe not. But I know other people that do a lot of thorough work, but maybe they're not always in front of the client. And the last thing is, clients are different. There are clients that will take the meeting and challenge you back and forth on every single issue of the company. And there are clients that you come to the meetings and they will tell you, cut the crap, tell me what you like and what you don't like. give me 3 names for buy, 3 names for sell, and that's it. And that's how it goes.
Magda, anything you wanted to add to this? Which ones are you? More the more the cut the crap, or or give me the details?
Depending on the sector and the company. Those who knows me, it's when we talk about telco, it's just like, let's go through the details and let's look what's going on. But what you all said about the research, you are one of the biggest companies in Poland, have one of the widest coverage. And this is true. When you get 20 reports of PKN because of the results of TPSA or whoever, you just don't read them because there is no time to read them. So but it's not like, as I said, we read a little percentage, but the analyst who thinks outside of the box, that's the one we like to listen. Because majority of this, let's say 20 analysts, they would write the same thing, or 75%. So what for to bother to read another one? So you just pick the ones that you like to listen, that thinks outside the box, that give you some value, because as you said, we know what's in the press, we know what's in the numbers. And coming to your question about should the analysts invest, I don't think so. Because beside the fact that they are really stubborn for a long period of time, keeping the recommendation sell or buy, then if they had a position that would even make them more to be longer stubborn. So I think it's for the research, coming back, you can differentiate yourself in today's world. It's tough, but you can do it. And you've got the salesperson who is actually the one who should point out to the PM that look at this research. And I remember once when I was working for the sell side, and I read a report about the Turkish bank. I read the first page, and I just recommended to my clients because it was one of the best written story I ever read, and the stock was plus 30% on that day because of the quality of the research.
If I may add a small comment, obviously my statement was a bit provocative, but what I am getting at that this idea is something like management option scheme for the management in the company. You care more about your job if you are directly involved in the company. If you have shares of your company, you are directly personally interested in. If analyst is somehow tied to this recommendation, he or she, I believe, is more interested, or there is a bit more bigger responsibility for his or her recommendation. So it was just a general idea, but if it would be something which plays really with the money, then maybe it could be more to the ground.
Thank you for that. Follow-up questions on the quality of research to Dariusz. You mentioned that you've got 24 analysts covering your company, split evenly between domestic and international. Would you see any major difference in terms of approach, quality, methodology, accuracy, any other aspects between the domestics and the internationals?
Well, the question is, what does it mean, domestic or international? If Rafał is writing a report about PKN Orlen sitting in Warsaw working for City, is he domestic? And when
yes,
okay,
that's the definition.
If Rafał is sitting in London working for City, is he international or still domestic?
My definition, he would be domestic if he's sitting in Warsaw.
No, so what I'm getting at, that I believe that it doesn't matter whether somebody is domestic or international. The quality depends on the person. Well, people who are living here in Poland and working here and covering Polish company have a bit more details around. They can read the news, the press, they read about the whole country economy, which is, I don't know, maybe it's advantage, maybe it's a disadvantage, because they may be overwhelmed with some details, while analysts sitting in London or Prague has a more global perspective, and he or she will be more putting the company in the context of sector, European sector, global sector, where the company is operating. So in terms of quality, I really do not distinguish, and I know very, very good brains, and all this thinking process which is behind this really matters. And in both groups, I had a little, at least a couple of names which I would rank as a top. So there are pluses and minuses of these. Polish international. If you have a Hungarian citizen working for a German bank, living in Poland, in Warsaw, but doing the European coverage, is he still domestic or international? It's a mixture currently. So I think depends on the person, and it's just different perspective, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you for that. And a follow-up question on that: do you actually, you mentioned you could recommend some as being better analysts, some worse. Do you have like a formal scoring system that you do? What kind of criteria would you use if you had an evaluation of an analyst covering your company? Would that be a formal sort of process or formal criteria? Is it accuracy of forecasts, accuracy of recommendation?
No,
understanding of the company?
It's just very subjective. If I am saying that somebody stop, I have in mind the overall picture, and it's not that we rank analysts or so. We are happy to talk to any of them. But what I mean by good analysis is if in a process of communication I can hear what kind of questions he or she is asking, and what kind of areas of the company he's picking up for more detailed analysis, what, based on the information we have provided, what kind of ideas or results is then exposed in an analyst. This counts for me.
Thank you very much. Now maybe let's switch a little bit from equity research overall more into corporate access. Maybe let's start again with Dariusz, if I may. How important is corporate access for you in terms of, I mean, investor access rather than corporate access in this case? And do you do it on your own as research, as investor relations team? Do you use brokers? How much time do you spend really on the road and participating in conferences?
We are using both ways to communicate with investors, with the market, and we do use extensively either the corporate access teams in banks or brokerage houses, either the analyst directly, because it's simply convenient for us. Simply from organizational point of view, if it comes to the conference you have mentioned, we just go to the conference and everything is set up. We have a list of meetings. All these meetings are prepared for us, and all the logistic side. Also, if we'll go on the non-deal roadshow, again, the logistic is organized, the pre-marketing is done. So we are happy to use these. If investors are coming, are visiting us in our company, which is happening at least twice a week throughout the whole year, sometimes it's investor by itself approaching us. Sometimes it's with assistance from the brokerage house, and so we are happy to use this. And it's a active communication. If you are going outside, if you are going on the road, we discuss our needs, ideas, then we confront it what the corporate access team or analyst directly can offer us. We are a little bit maybe stepping back also to this analyst and the role of the research and analyst. I think it's not only this single role of analyst, that analyst at sell side is covering the company and providing the information to investors. From company perspective, sell side for me has four main roles or four main issues which are why they are important for us. First of all, the sell-side analysts are sort of watchdogs. They are the people who are contacting very frequently company, asking different questions, calling us several times a day. Investors we are meeting on the road, on the meeting, and rarely comparing to the contacts with them. So the analysts keep us awake all the time because we know that it can be a tough questions from them. We have to be always prepared. The quarterlies has to be very carefully worked out, and so forth and so forth. Because we know it will be then transferred to investors like Magda, and they will get it in the nutshell. But the sell side is doing this job to put it compact all together. So let's call it watchdog. Secondly is the feedback for us. We talk to them and we get the feedback from the market. And the sell side is telling us, you know, market didn't like what you said during the last results, or there is a general mood which is so and so. Well, your sector now it's hot, or your sector is in Europe is fine, but in US it's crap. That kind of things. The third thing is what I just mentioned: all this assistance with the roadshows, conferences, pre-marketing of the meetings, and last but not least, something we agreed with Magda when we were talking before this panel, that sell side keeps you in a space that people are talking about you. So whether it's good or bad is a different story, but sometimes, especially for a smaller company, it's difficult to keep its presence within the universe of the capital market. And analyst, the sell side, is the channel of communication to the wide market. So there are these four functions I would say, which are important from the point of view of the corporate. The watchdog, the feedbacks, pre-marketing, organizational issues, and let's say widely understood marketing of the company.
Thank you very much. From investors' perspective, we've heard some of it. You said conferences are extremely important. Do you tend to use brokers for corporate access more, less, or?
Definitely for us, corporate access is important, but I wouldn't agree with Rafał that for us it's very easy to get the access to the companies. In Poland, yes, there is no problem, but imagine us wanted to set a meeting with Orange France. That would be impossible to do it on a standalone. Who is PZU asset management for them? Nobody. So we would have to use actually Rafał's help, just go to them and try to set up the meeting, and we would get the meeting only with the IR, forget about the management. So definitely that's how we are using their help. And in terms of corporate access, you can have everything written by the analyst. You can everything read in an annuals, quarterly reports. Those are all numbers, but you have to meet with the management. One thing that I learned working for the IR in the past, that management are the people who are behind the strategy of the company. So once you meet them, you understand where the company is and when the company is going to go. And this is from our side. If you want to invest in the company and want to make alpha, you need to know this. So you never go for the meeting with the management just to ask them about stupid numbers in the PLN or cash flow. No, this is not what for we need the companies. We need to sit with them and talk about the market, a perspective, how they see themselves in a 5 years' time, and then we can come back to the office, have the analysis, the report, our view, and figure out if it's an interesting thing to invest or not.
Thank you very much. In the broker's perspective, are you getting more or less requests? Is corporate access part of your job description, or is it getting less, more?
Yes, it is, but it's very competitive. Competitive in the sense that I mean, I think there are two sides of the story. One is that, let's say, domestically, you have a lot of competitions between other brokerage houses to set up the meetings. The other challenge is that sometimes you would like to set up the meeting, but it's impossible because the company is not meeting with anybody, and it's a skill to get that meeting. And the challenges that my colleagues are facing, let's say that if we want to take the company, let's say to US sometimes to get in touch with the clients. So also what I can observe over the years is that it's getting more and more difficult to get directly in touch with the clients, and the same goes for salespeople. So it's either a voicemail or simply email. So yeah, I would say it's corporate access is important. It is being appreciated by the clients. It is something that can also distinguish you if you are lucky, especially with some company that rarely meets. There's one comment that I would like to make also on the back of everything that we say. Just that's also sort of for you. So if they don't try not to be angry with the analyst that has a sell recommendation on the company that you work for. It doesn't really matter that much. It's just, I mean, if what is important, and try not to be sort of try to challenge him, explain that he's using the wrong multiples or something. It's counterproductive. Try to provide him with the information, and when you see exactly where he's wrong, when the story is completely out of whack with the strategy of the company. And try to be sort of very helpful. And if someone has a sell, okay. I mean, he has a sell today. He will have a buy tomorrow. So, because I've met some companies that are hate to see a sell recommendation, and the sell recommendation is not coming because the company is wrong. It is very often because it's simply too expensive, and it has nothing to do with you. Sometimes I would say, put in quotes, has something to do with Magda or her colleagues. But that's sort of, or the market itself in a given moment.
Thanks very much for provocative comments as well. One final round of questions before I give the floor to the audience for any potential questions you might have. Regards the regulation, as you know, financial markets are getting more and more regulated, and unfortunately, it's also starting to impact research and corporate access. Apparently, recently there have been two major developments in terms of regulation. One is a new policy paper by Financial Conduct Authority in the UK, and the other one is a prospective MiFID II directive, which will significantly limit investors in what they can pay the brokers for. And one of the major issues will be the restriction on paying for corporate access. And Magda, the question to you really, do you think that will significantly impact your activity, the way you use brokers in a context obviously of research and corporate access? Do you think there'll be fewer analysts, less coverage because of that?
I think it all depends what the sell side's gonna do, whatever they're gonna cut on conferences or not. From our perspective, we use it, we like it, we need it, And should they cut on it, it would be more difficult for us, but we can do it, we can contact. But I think that this might evolve in the future, that we would pay for the conferences. There is no problem with it. It doesn't have to be the part of the commission, because I do understand the unbundling, but paying for the conference, if we think it's useful, why not?
Rafał, so the question over to you. Do you think brokers will cut on corporate access activities because of this unbundling or inability of investors to pay brokers commission, trading commissions for corporate access?
The straight answer would be I don't know, but I think
you have some insight into
but I think
dynamics in the industry.
They should not. It's just the normal part of the activity. How the industry evolves, that somehow you still will be compensated in some way or the other for providing the service. But I don't think that there are other regulations which are much more riskier for the industry as a whole, but I don't think that would have a significant negative impact.
Thank you. And finally, the corporate world. Dariusz, do you think the communication process with investors
I would say corporate access teams probably will be a little bit smaller.
Okay, so there'll be cuts. Sorry, so over to you, Dariusz. Do you think that could impact the communication process between PKN and investors?
As far as I understood, this regulation relates currently to UK world. So first of all, it's a limited, although UK and London is a sort of very center of this world, but it's not pan-European. So the area is limited. Secondly, I think that the provision of these are very much unclear, not to say foggy, and very general. So I believe that there is a many ways to interpret these rules. And I believe that the whole financial world will quickly accommodate to that, and there will be a solution how to adopt it in a way that either the independent companies providing the corporate access will be providing such as services, something like that. So in the end of the day, I believe it will not influence significantly the core of the issue. It will be maybe a bit more difficult for, like Magda said, maybe a bit difficult maybe for us, for all of us, but I don't think it will change dramatically the whole story.
Thank you very much. So now we open the floor for questions. Please feel free to ask questions to any of our distinguished panelists today.
Adam Kucza, Polish Oil and Gas Company. A question to Rafał. I would like to link to the presentation we've heard in the morning. There was a presentation of Magda from Goldman Sachs, and one of the points was Poland and the C3 regions getting more and more developed, or being more and more qualified to the group of developed countries, right? How this process can influence your work and your team's work in terms of research? This switch, or for example, companies from Poland and the region more and more aiming at sector investors instead of emerging market investors in their shareholding composition. Does it change anyhow how you do research, how you're planning to do the research?
No, I would say at the moment, not really, because at the moment we are still in emerging market indices, and we probably gonna stay in those for some time. The difference is that you are getting more interest from, or calls from clients that are, let's say, were strictly Western European, and they start to look at the company despite the fact that it's in emerging markets indices.
So you would say it is this way, not other way around. So it is not your team calling and checking if there are some, let's say, people interested from sectoral funds in such companies?
I mean, the salesperson will contact you, right? It's not that, let's say, the global mandate, I think, is broadening generally. We have a lot of much more global funds than the regional funds. That also is changing the picture. So from our perspective, the job is still the same. Is simply the level of interest sometimes a little bit bigger. But it's not always from a perspective of the company, which is, let's say, regional which want to be perceived as a global player and be, I can only say, example, the company that I cover, KGHM, which has the aspirations to be a global mining company, but still the perception is, and it's going to take some time, as a more regional company. So you will have people that will be saying, yeah, that's the only mining company in the region, and I will buy it, despite the fact, let's say, theoretically, it's more expensive than something else, but that's the only exposure in the region. And the company would like to be covered by global main houses and top commodity analysts, which I don't think is taking place right now, probably not necessarily anytime soon.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Hi, Peter Niklovich from the Warsaw Stock Exchange again. Just a question, or really a bit of advice from the panel. If you are a CEE mid-cap with only domestic coverage, is there any advice that you would give the management team or the IR team on how to broaden its exposure with international investors?
Who wants to take this question? Maybe Magda, sorry.
I think first you have to think if you have a story to tell. And then I think the best thing would be to contact the broker and try to pursue him that there is a story, then there would be interest. And then that they would contact investors. And this is not like what you said, CE. This is what we see right now from the developed Europe that's enlarging their shareholders, and they're coming, for example, to Poland. This way, they contact the broker and trying to get to the contact with the Polish investors.
I would say the one thing that I would add is probably it's simple and not simple answer. If you are a regional company that has just regional coverage, but as Magda said, has a great story to tell, sooner or later, you're going to be promoted by me and my colleagues and recognized by the investors. On the other hand, usually the problem is in the liquidity. So you may have a great story to tell, but you are not investable for people outside of the region, because the wallet is much bigger. And because of that, you're going to have a limited coverage. You may have the coverage, but the analyst will never be able to convince the investor to go for that.
Thank you. One more question.
Agata Dzięciołowska, Signity. Mr. Grembosch just related to PKN Orlen coverage, which is quite impressive, especially from a perspective of a mid-cap stock. And this is something that I would like to focus on, what your advice would be for mid-cap stocks. How would you see things going forward, noticing the smaller amounts of equity analysts, of research going into mid-cap and small-cap stocks. So actually, I've got a question for Rafał and for Magda. How can mid-cap, small-cap companies attract IR, or IR teams attract the attention of equity analysts? So this is a question for Rafał. And then to Magda, controversially, is there any sense in attracting just 1 or 2 analysts and then having a consensus of 1 or 2 people and then some outdated research on a stock? Fortunately, there's no situation of Signity at the moment, but it's something to think about from a perspective of mid-cap, small-cap stocks.
I'm not sure that I'm going to give you a perfect answer, right? But I would say be persistent in knocking on the door of the analyst, and you have to sort of also remember or keep in mind the other side of the story. The analyst sometimes is a couple of 8, 10, 12, 15 companies that he's covering, and the capacity is limited depending on the complexity of the company. So he may be interested, but he simply has no capacity. I don't think that the research teams will be growing. Domestically, probably, if anything, will be shrinking rather than growing. So that's clearly a challenge. But at the same time, if the companies, because I mean, if the company is something that the company relatively mature with flat earnings, he will say, he probably would not be interested. But if you have the story of the company that is either went through a material transformation and things are really changing, and there is some track record that you can show him, you have to also remember that the analyst wants to have something interesting in his store, right? He has stuff in the store, Magda is coming, and what's interesting in your store? And so it's not in the interest of the analyst saying everything is on hold or everything is sell, you should go to other store, because everything is crap. No, I want to have something that I'm really convinced and happy to tell Magda, go for it, buy, it's attractive for this, and that reason. So definitely those stories try to be persistent. I know that it's not easy. There are other liquidity issues and the time constraints on the analyst side. But I would say, try to show him, send him information, keep him on the email list. One day he may be interested.
I fully agree with Rafał. I think the worst thing is to have several analysts and nobody writing the report. So the most important thing is to have analysts who knows what's going on in the company. So you would have to keep them posted. So if I call the analyst about the ideas, he points me this and he can tell me the story. This is very important. Because even if he has it under coverage, but haven't been written anything for a year, doesn't know what happened in this company, so what point of it?
Yeah, because I mean, I would say officially I can recommend stuff that I officially cover. So I cannot comment on the company, but if I see the company exactly and have some track record of what is happening and have some view but don't have official view, I can tell Magda, yes, that looks interesting, have you seen this? And that's a different...
Okay, I'm afraid we're running out of time a little bit. We have time probably for one last question, I'm afraid, and then we'll have to wrap it up.
Hi, Marius Dan, Franklin Templeton Investment Management. I have two questions, one for Magda, one for Rafał. In general, what could corporates do better, Magda, in order to attract you on the register? Of course, some companies are better than others, but as a general comment, what could be improved? And for Rafał, what could the IR teams be doing to make your job easier as a research analyst?
What they could do better? I think be more open and more honest, and not only trying to suit and work about their valuation, but really show what's in the company. That's how I look at this.
I think I touched this on this at the beginning, is try to build a relationship with the analyst. He will call you often or not, sometimes you call him, but create an atmosphere that he has absolutely any constraints to give you a phone call about a small thing on a mobile. So I would say PKN is an example of the company that is friendly to analysts. It's not that they tell us everything, but they're very, very friendly and accessible. And I have no any issues to call some people from the IR department. With other companies, I don't know them that much. So on one hand, IR probably should work as sort of a way of promoting the company to the analyst, to the investor. Will they be successful or not? But the promotion never sort of hurts, right? And that's probably should be, that's how I would see it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all the questions. So to just quickly wrap it up, it seems like equity research still is a vital part of the communication between corporates and investors. The quantity does not seem to be too much of an issue, at least for the blue chip companies. It's more the consistency of coverage that's lacking, and the quality that sometimes it varies from analyst to analyst. Corporate access remains a vital part of the communication process as well, and still the brokers have a role to play. However, corporates should remember to be very open to analysts and investors, even those analysts that have a sell recommendation. Regulations do change the playing field for all parties involved. However, our panelists agreed that it's a bit too early to see how big this impact could be. They're not overly concerned with it. And for small and mid caps, keep banging the door of the brokers, and investors will come. Thank you. Our panelists today were Magdalena Łapsa, fund manager from PZU Asset Manager, Dariusz Grębosz, head of IR from PKN Orlen, and Rafał Wiatr, head of research from Citi Handlowy. Thank you all for listening.